This is the first Fulton Ambassadors podcast. This is going to be hopefully something we continue throughout our semesters. So today we have 5 amazing students. If we wanted to go around and introduce everybody, we could start with Trevor.
Hi, my name's Trevor. This is my second year as a Fulton Ambassador. I'm a lead CA at Tucker House on campus. I'm involved in Fury. I've done epics in the past, and I'm really passionate about chemical engineering.
Awesome. Alex, would you like to introduce yourself?
I mean, if I have to. No, totally kidding. I'm Alex. This is, I guess, my 3rd year in FA. I am a CA in Vista. I am currently the Vice President External for Engineers Without Borders. I've done a lot of semesters of epics, and I definitely have enjoyed my time here at Fulton Ambassadors.
Awesome. Laura, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Hi, my name is Laura. I study robotics, engineering, and human systems engineering. This is my first time with Fulton Ambassadors. I'm also part of Desert Wave, Women in Autonomous Vehicle Engineering, so we create cool underwater autonomous robots.
Great. And then Robert, let's hear it.
Yeah, hello. I'm Robert. I'm a junior in electrical engineering, and I've been in Fulton Ambassadors for about 3 years. I've done Fury. I'm doing more research right now. I'm in the Grand Challenge Scholars Program. I'm also in my 5th year of an epics project. So it's just a little bit about me.
Awesome. And then lastly, I'm Felix Ramondo. I am the host of today's podcast. I'm the Vice President of the Fulton Ambassadors at the Poly campus. And today we are going to be talking about what kind of things Poly and Tempe has to offer for Fulton. We're going to talk about joining clubs and different kinds of involvement. Then we're going to go to how we communicate with professors and our experiences. And then a hot topic is how virtual learning is going. And then we're going to finish it off with some study habits and strategies that you have to share. So this is just an interactive, turn off your microphone when you want and share as much as you like. So the first question and the first topic is going to be about what Poly and Tempe has to offer. So the first question will be directed towards Poly. And the first question is, how has your experiences with the Polytechnic campus been? What are some pros and cons?
Okay, so I'm on Poly. I think the pros for Poly would be definitely the community. I've heard so many people just highlight the community, how tight-knit we are, how interactive we can be. Like, we always have somebody we can talk to, collaborate with. We're never alone. We always have that support for sure. I think some cons, it is smaller, so there are less food options, I would say, unless you go outside of campus. I think Tempe, you have a lot more options there. And I would say, yeah.
Awesome. And then what would you say is your personal favorite Fulton resource on the Polytechnic campus?
I would probably say the labs that Fulton has to offer, where we can just go and work on our projects. There's always people in there. There's some really helpful faculty there. We can always ask them questions. We're always just set up for success.
Awesome. Those are some great answers, Laura. Thank you for sharing everything. And then the next question is directed towards Tempe. And so how has your experiences on the Tempe campus been? What are some pros and cons of that?
I'll go ahead and go. So Tempe obviously is somewhat more considered to be a central location, which, take it as you will. Some people prefer it, some people don't. I do enjoy how many people are here, how many different majors there are here. I don't think I introduced it previously, but I'm majoring in civil engineering. That's something that only the Tempe campus, I believe, really offers. There's a lot of things that I can go, especially coming my junior year now. I'm realizing how many labs there are, like ISTV2, how many things in that building are just strictly dedicated towards civil engineering and labs having to do with that. So I really enjoy that. And the Tempe campus does have really good food options. I'm not even going to mess around about that one. I definitely had Qdoba, I guess, 2 days ago, and then last night I had Donor Dudes. If you haven't had Donor Dudes, it's like Mediterranean. It's incredible. I mean, but Tempe campus, I enjoy the people here. I enjoy the way the campus is set up, and the food is obviously a big plus.
Yeah, I think another thing about the Tempe campus that I really enjoy is just the size of it all. Like besides the amount of resources in my major in electrical engineering and all the professors and how close they are, I'm able to work closely with other different majors and different professors from those majors, and it's all kind of in one central location, like Alex was saying. So like for my EPICS project, I can work with mechanical engineers, I can work with civil engineers, for example, if I ever need them, but it's all very central and very located. So the size is there, but it's still very central, which I think is another benefit. But again, that can also be a con. So I'd say a pro is the size and a con is the size. So because of the size, I think it can also make things a little, the options are there, but you have to go out yourself to search and find them. It's not more of a community thing. You really have to look sometimes to find what you're looking for because of the size.
I think that's still so awesome that you have that that opportunity. Like it's so tight knit in that like area. You can still really build a relationship with your professors and engineering faculty. That to me, being on Poly, Tempe seems so spread out, but it's so nice to hear that like ASU is still doing a fantastic job of really centralizing the majors, setting up us again for success, so we can, focus on our futures.
Kind of going off what Alex was saying, I mean, the reason that I am here at Tempe is because of my major, because I'm pretty certain that chemical engineering isn't offered on. I'd be very impressed if chemical engineering was offered at Poly, but that's why I'm here, and like the primary reason. But one of the things that I do love about the Tempe campus is not necessarily all the things that are like major specific that you get to use, but like those niche things that are available to people that are in Fulton that you don't necessarily need to use, but are there if you want to, like the laser lab. Right, like I went in there, and using the laser lab is a lot of fun. Not even just like what you make, but just watching the thing work is so cool. And having access to stuff like that is awesome. And then for cons, I think Robert and Alex have both hit the nail on the head on that one.
Awesome. So then this is a great lead into the second part of the question of what has been your personal favorite Fulton resource on the Tempe campus. You mentioned the laser. What are some other things that you really enjoy?
I mean, there's just so much cool stuff, right? Like we have such crazy research labs. I mean, I'm working on carbon capture from ambient air with Dr. Dang. So having, I mean, all those different labs nearby, because there was quite a variety to choose from when I was doing Fury. There's a lot of professors that are looking for undergrads that want to do research in different areas. So it was kind of, I mean, not necessarily me choosing a professor in a project. That's kind of what it was, because there were so many options out there.
Definitely. I think kind of what my favorite resource has been, so I'm going to kind of combine UGTAs and the tutoring center. So I feel like there's a lot I can learn from professors in office hours, but I feel like there's almost like a different way learning is approached by talking to like a UGTA, someone who's, I don't know, maybe a year or even just a semester ahead of me, who's just taken this, who has like a fresh perspective, knows exactly what I might be struggling with. I think that's been incredibly helpful. Especially these last few semesters. And in addition to that, at the tutoring center, sometimes the UGTAs will also be tutors. So it's kind of like you get the in-class help from them or recitation help from them. And then if you're still stuck on something, you can just go to the tutoring center and it's the same person helping you sometimes. So I found that incredibly helpful. It saves me a lot of time. Instead of learning on my own, I can ask someone who's literally just done it before me. It can kind of point me in the right direction.
Yeah, I think Trevor and Alex really hit the nail on the head. Those are really both great resources, both Fury and just tutoring and UGTAs in general. The atmosphere there is
Definitely.
really
So, sorry.
But I would have to add also the FC100 labs and design spaces. Sometimes they have open hours where you can just go in there and tinker with whatever projects you want to work on. I've done that for EPICS a couple of times. And also different other clubs. It's just really open hours that I've really enjoyed being able to work on either personal projects or stuff for classes. And they offer small things that you might have used for your FC100 class, popsicle sticks or straws or any little thing you need if you want to start building a small prototype. So I've really enjoyed also that resource.
Definitely. Those are great things that Tempe has to offer, as well as Poly. There's so many unique opportunities at each campus that there's really an endless amount. So then that is a perfect time to go into the next topic of joining clubs and involvement. So how have you gotten involved in your time at Fulton, and what has been your experiences in those programs as organizations? So someone talked about Epics, you talked about some other clubs. Like, how have your experiences been?
It's been pretty awesome. On my end, everything at Poly is, as I found, kind of interconnected. There's a lot of collaboration between all the different organizations. That might just because of the size of the community and Poly in general. I don't know how it is on Tempe, but I know that the clubs I'm in Desert Wave, and I'm also in undergraduate student government. We collaborate a lot with, Changemaker Central, PAB, Sun Devil, Formula Electric, even Poly on Wheels. Like, we're in collaboration with all the clubs on our campus. Desert Wave, the club I'm on, is supplemental to my education. It's not just something separate that I do. It impacts what I'm actually doing, what I'm working towards for my career. So I think that's something that all the clubs, I think, really help benefit our students. Is it's not just something that we do on the side. It's always alongside, like, connected with, intermingles with our futures.
I feel like an issue that I run into with the amount of clubs there is that there's so many clubs that I can't do all the ones I want to do. Like, in a week, I can do like concrete canoe, ASCE, EWB, and then I want to do epics, and then I want to get involved with FA, and then I want to go do this. I'm like, oh yeah, I also have homework I have to do, right? So there's so many things that, like, I've been able to experience, like, get involved in. It's really helped me, like, broaden what I'm interested in, and at the same time help me narrow what I'm interested in. I would say definitely 2 years ago, even a year ago, I had no idea what I liked and what I wanted to do in civil engineering. And I feel like the more I get involved into Engineers Without Borders, I was a project lead last year. That overlapped directly with Epics. So through Epics, I literally got class credit for an extracurricular activity. So I mean, that's incredible. First. But the more I get to see and the more I get to do, the cooler it all becomes, and the more I want to do at the same time. So it's like a never-ending cycle of, like, oh, that's cool, I want to try that out, but I don't really have time. And then I get more involved, and I'm not complaining. I love it. So that's definitely something I've found. There's so many clubs you can do, and there's something for everybody. Like, there's definitely a club. If you're interested in it, I guarantee there's already a club for it. So something I've found here at Tempe.
I definitely feel that about, like, spreading yourself too thin, and not even on purpose, just because you're like, oh, that sounds so cool, and it's awesome. So, like, it's definitely, like, taught me, like, I have to say no to something sometimes for, like, my own sanity. However interesting it is, really, honestly. So it's very cool.
Definitely. I mean, even the podcast. Like, someone was like, "Hey, Alex, do you want to do an FA podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds fun." So I mean, there's just so many opportunities. It's never ending. So definitely enjoy that.
I just wanted to jump in here really fast. We've been talking about the EPICS a little bit. And so the EPICS is a program at Fulton Schools of Engineering, and it stands for Engineering Projects and Community Service. And so it's an opportunity for students to work together to solve anything that interests them, whether it's a community far away, doesn't matter size. It's about getting out involved in the community. Sorry, just wanted to add that in.
It was important.
There's definitely a lot of clubs to get involved in, though. I can remember back in my freshman year when I first got into college, and they had the passport program right before classes started. And that night I just spent the whole night going through all the Fulton clubs and putting my email, I gave 20 plus clubs my email because they all looked interested, and then they all emailed me back and my email was full. But I tried to attend most of the meetings, and the free food, most of them have free food, and so that helps, get your foot kind of in the door. But for sure, Laura and Alex are both right. There's just so many, you want to do so many different things, whether it be EPICS or FA or EWB or something like that. There's just so many things that can interest you. And so I think the hard part actually isn't finding the clubs, it's narrowing it down to what you really, really want to do. And that might take a semester or two of being super, super stretched extracurricular wise. But if you're an incoming freshman and you're a little worried about that, I'd say the first semester is really just figure that out. So it's not too big a deal. I think everyone goes through it. And you'll eventually find really what you're comfortable with and what you can exceed in.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with what Robert's been saying. Definitely, there's a lot of clubs out there, and I kind of did the same thing my freshman year. Just went the Passport. Passport's a lot of fun, and then all the free food and all the meetings and whatnot. Sign up for a bunch of them, and then what I ended up not really like being too involved in most of them. The one that kind of caught my attention though was Epics. I don't even know if they were at Passport, but it was because it offered a real world engineering experience, to the point of like, hey, here's a problem, go and solve it. And kind of through what I did in Epics, or what I have done, a couple projects I've done, it's definitely kind of narrowed down what I want to do. So it's been helpful, not only as developing me, but also kind of giving me an idea of like what I want to do moving forward.
Yeah, and even building off of that, just with extracurriculars, there's something about when you're becoming an engineer, as you're in your classes, you're solving problems and there's a solution to each problem. But there's something about when you have your own thing that you're designing, your own thing that you're solving for, your own thing you're trying to make it work, when it doesn't necessarily have a solution. It's not some problem that someone made somewhere, but your goal is to get it to work, not necessarily to solve the equation or solve the problem. And there's something as an engineer that makes your head like just turn. You're like, wow, the application of this, I'm not just finding the solution, I'm actually making something work. And that's really what you can get if you get involved in extracurriculars, I think, especially like Epics or EWB or something like that.
Building off of that just one more time, I absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's one thing to like solve equations and problems in class, but when you have a real job, however many years from now, they're not going to sit you down and go, okay, we need to build this, can you solve f of x equals 0? And you're never going to do that. So that's why I think it's so important to have like Epics and, like everybody else is saying, like experience in that, because I think that's kind of what, if you are looking for a job someday, which I assume you are, that's kind of what companies do usually look for. Is someone who's able to do that, not just do math problems all day.
Definitely, that's a great point. You have to be ready to go into the workforce. And so our first podcast is going off great. This is a perfect transition to our academic kind of topic of how do you communicate with professors? What have you learned? What have you learned from that experience? Add to your tips from communicating with professors, and what are some ways you can interact with your professors that'll make a positive impression?
I think right off the bat, the most important thing is attending office hours, creating a relationship with your professors, even if you don't end up like talking to them long term, like throughout your whole entire career, but definitely just even a foundational relationship, like at least throughout the semester or throughout the year, because that really impacts your success, your progress with the content, and that impacts you later on in life. You build those interpersonal skills that you can apply to any situation. Your colleagues, your peers, your management, right? So that shows that you're not afraid to ask questions, to make mistakes, because that's the best thing, to make mistakes. That's like what we want to do, because then we can get better, we can make progress. And then from there, it's just like saying yes to like opportunities that they present to you, as long as it fits with your schedule. Like that's like super important to like make sure like you value, like, is this actually plausible for me right now? Is this going, and if not, can you like create time for it, because it's going to impact your future, right? So something for me is that my engineering 101 teacher happens to be my mentor for Desert Wave, one of them, and that's been really helpful for me. It's been amazing because I have this long-term relationship with him. Like I can just say, hey, can we set up a Zoom call and talk about something that I'm really worried about? Like we have that relationship. So at least one professor, having that relationship with one professor makes an entire huge difference to your college experience. I was really lucky in that way that my 101, 102 professor became honestly like one of my best my best coworkers. Like I love hearing about his experiences, his wisdom, and that really sets me up well I feel more confident in myself. So that's just my 2 cents there.
So I can only really speak personally to the chemical engineering faculty, but in my experience, like all the professors are legitimately there to help you learn and improve as a professional and offer as many opportunities as they can. I've had the most luck with honestly just going up to them after class and like chatting with them, seeing what they're doing, what opportunities they have. CHE 211 is our like introductory chemical engineering course, if you will, and the professor that I had for CHE 211 is also someone who I've done some research under. I was UGTA for that same class the next year. He's overseeing my thesis. So honestly, just like, even though it's kind of scary because, these people have like PhDs and they're super smart and whatnot, just going up to them, seeing what they're doing. And then like Laura was saying, if they ever reach out with opportunities, because a lot of them like to send out like theory notifications about like, hey, who wants to do theory via like the class Canvas announcements and stuff like that. So seeing those and then being on the ball about responding to opportunities that you see come up.
Oh yeah, I would definitely agree. I think something that I wish I had realized when I was a freshman in regards to professors is, and people say this all the time, but is that they're just people just like you and me. But a lot of them are like also very excited and passionate about what they teach and what they research. So I think, and many of them have spent, almost 10 years in school learning and spending all that time and putting that in order that they could go and teach and they could go and research what they're passionate about. So these people are super passionate about what they're teaching, what they're researching. So I think a great way to just get to know professors is to say, hey, what are you researching? I've done that many times. And these are, they don't just spend all the time researching. Like, you can always ask them, like, hey, can we talk about your research? Do you want to go to Kidobo in the MU and like sit down and like, I really want to learn more about it, maybe possibly do some research with you. But they're not just like super stoked people who sit at the front and tap on the board and say, memorize this equation. They actually are doing things behind the scenes, and they have many different things they're invested in and very excited about. So that's always something I wish I had known when I was a freshman. I could really easily approach them like that. So.
When I was a freshman, I was like, I have no idea what office hours are. Like, doesn't make any sense. Office hours are literally in place for you to show up and ask them questions. Like, they designate certain times because that's what they want you to do. They're not just sitting there saying, I hope no one comes. So when I figured that out and I started going to office hours more regularly, not only did I feel more interest in the material because I was learning that there's more than just this equation. Here's where it came from. Here's why I teach it. Here's what I use it for, which is incredible to me. I think there's applications of it. I didn't realize that as a freshman entirely. And then not only that, but my grades like skyrocketed. I was like, holy cow. I was like, wait a second, asking them questions makes me better at this? Wow. I understood that, but I didn't really like connect the dots there until I actually did it. So I think not only is it great to like get into research or get into what the professor's doing, learning about who they are, the more involved you get with them, the more involved you are like mentally, and that kind of correlates to a better, like you just feel better when you go home at the end of the day because you're interested. And I can say it does correlate to better grades as well. And that's kind of how I operate now. Get interested in the professor, get interested in the material. I'm interested in the homework almost.
Awesome. Those are some great practical tips about how to communicate with your professors. And so then how has that really changed with the virtual platform? What has your experience been with ASU's hybrid model? And are there any tips that you've learned from going through this experience? And do you look at learning a different way than you did before?
Textbooks, I had no idea how helpful they were until I had to read them. A lot of the times, professors their classes are actually based off of the textbook they say is for the class. And if you actually take some time to read them, I can't believe how helpful they are. There's a lot of discoveries that I've made, with the first being, of course, office hours. The next one would be this. I didn't realize how important it was to kind of review the material before it was taught. So then when I show up and they start talking about some theoretical equation, math problem, whatever it might be, if I've already seen it before and read through it a little bit once, it makes a whole lot more sense the second time I see it. And that's kind of what I found with the virtual platform is that if I take some time to review it beforehand, so say the time that I would take to kind of get to class before 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, however long it would take, if I take 15 minutes to read like a skim 10, 15 pages of the textbook, I find that a lot sticks and it's actually a lot better for me. I'm able to ask questions. So that's kind of what I found and what I've been doing is I adjusted by taking the time I used to travel and using time to prepare myself for class.
I definitely agree with Alex about the textbook thing. I think especially with this virtual environment where some people aren't on campus, some people are, it's often just me and the textbooks, and it's caused me to bury my nose in it sometimes and make some discoveries. Like sometimes I'm looking through the textbook trying to find more practice for a certain topic. I'm like, and I start an example. I'm like, wow, this example is very familiar. And then I start looking at my notes. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the example the professor went over in class. How about that? So there's a lot of things you can find in the textbooks, I'm pretty sure. And there's always resources. I think I found ACU's new hybrid model. I'm a little more of an introvert, and I like it actually a little better than completely in person. And I think that's just because of the flexibility I have, because I can go onto campus, socially distanced and masked up as the requirements are, but I can also stay at home and transition seamlessly between Zoom class and working on homework, and that saves me quite a bit of time that I would use actually to travel to class. And it gives me a lot more flexibility. I found I have a lot more time to make meals. I'm eating healthier, which is actually a big pro. So I think I've, in a sense, begun to enjoy ASU's hybrid model, ASU Sync, a lot. So.
Yeah, the virtual learning thing has definitely been a transition with some pros and some cons. I think one of the biggest pros for me, on top of just kind of having a little bit more time to myself, is the fact that the lectures are all recorded. That's incredible, because like some of these lectures, these people make no sense, but then you go back and you watch it a couple times and you're like, actually upon the fourth or fifth time listening to that makes a little bit more sense. And so yeah, that, and then I also have started going to the textbook too. And the nice thing about that is I've actually had a couple of professors get like adjusted prices through the bookstore or something like that, and they've only been like $20 in their virtual textbooks. So also, the nice thing about virtual textbook is you could just Control F through them, just find exactly what you want. It's beautiful. But yeah, it's been an interesting transition. I think I might actually prefer the hybrid as well.
On my end, I think the hybrid learning has been pretty actually beneficial, because we have more opportunities to, I think for me personally, I can involve myself in a few more things because most of the meetings are virtual. So I don't have to worry about driving to different meetings. I can just schedule them right off the others. So I still have time for myself, still have time to, again, dive into those textbooks. Oh my gosh, textbooks are fantastic because they really they go well with the lectures, because you watch the lectures, you read the book. You can find online examples as well because you're right there with your computer. You're like, hey, I don't really make sense. Khan Academy. Sometimes I go back to the Green Brothers, their YouTube videos, honestly, throwing it way back. It makes so much more sense. Like we have so much more, many more resources at our hand, on our fingertips, So we have the office hours, we have the lectures, the recorded lectures, you can go back later, the textbooks. So we can even just in 5 minutes later meet up with our friend through Zoom or Discord and collaborate and really enhance our learning.
Those are definitely so many great tips about how you're experiencing this semester and how you're actually thriving during it. And so then this is the last topic that we have today of study habits and strategies. And so you guys already talked about how beneficial the textbooks are and having the virtual recorded lectures. What other tools are you using that you're taking notes with? And how are you finding time to study for your classes as well as fulfill those extracurricular activities?
Well, I'm kind of old-fashioned in terms of studying. I still like me some good paper over here. I kind of looked into getting like an iPad or something like that because I know you can, but it's kind of like a big sink for me to make because I've never really done that. So it'd be like the learning curve as well as the initial cost. Although I do have friends who use stuff like that and they absolutely love it. It works great for them. As far as like, what was the second part of that question? Sorry, Felix.
So it was about how do you find time preparing for exams while fulfilling all the extracurricular activities you've committed to?
Yeah. So for me, the biggest thing is just like prioritizing to-do lists, stuff like that, just making sure that I keep myself organized because all the different things that I'm in have a lot of random things to do, especially being a CA this year as I'm sure Alex knows, has a lot of random small requirements that just need to get done at certain times. So just kind of sitting down, making a to-do list, doing what needs to be done most first has really helped me. Although the to-do list, making them can sometimes be kind of scary because then I see my whole week planned out and I'm like, That's not it. It's going to be a brutal week, but yeah, that's definitely how I stay organized most of the time.
I have a similar approach. Sorry, Robert, I saw you unmuted. My fault. I kind of messed up our little order there. No, I kind of wanted to build off of that because organization was another big thing I had to learn. I'm not a big fan of organizing. I just like doing it. So to-do lists, I'm terrified of them. I don't make to-do lists because the second I write it down, I forget about it. I'm like, oh, it's done now, right? I wrote it down. So kind of something similar. I imagine like an axis in my head with like one being urgent, one being important, and they all start important and not very urgent. And as they get closer and closer to being both important and urgent, that's when they get done, right? So if I have like 7 things due and it's Tuesday and they're all due Wednesday, I'm like, all right, which one of these is the most important right now? Because there could be one where I could ask a question on right now in class and get that done. So like brushing my teeth, that's important, but at noon, it's not very urgent, right? So I would wait until nighttime to do that one. So that's how I've kind of been going at it. To-do lists, I'm sorry, I'm kind of not very traditional with that. I'm not a big fan of organizing. I organize it all up here and it's somewhere, right? So that's one of the important urgent axes list type deal. That's been the most effective for me. And I think that's what's allowed me to do all of the things that I have done. So it's like, oh, I have a club meeting in 2 hours. Let's prepare for that now. And then I'll work on an assignment before that. So it's kind of just prioritizing heavily and then thinking about what needs to get done and then doing what can be done later. That makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that. I keep a calendar. My high school would make us, or they would strongly advise us to keep a calendar, and I kind of kept that habit going into college. And like Trevor, I'm kind of old school. I have a notebook for every single one of my classes. And I try and continue if I have extra space. So I have the same notebook for circuits 1, 2, and 3, and it's just back to back to back. So I have like my whole knowledge for all of that in one. I can look back. I really love just the physical aspect of it. I haven't really invested in an iPad or anything like that. But besides a calendar, I'm also a major front loader. And so when assignments come out, I start working on them. I try and get them done. And so I can visit office hours earlier than most people. And I have plenty of time to get the assignment done, also collaborate with other friends or help them if they're struggling to. And so I try and keep things very front loaded. So when exams do come, I can be like, oh, I just won't I'm a week ahead in homework, so I just won't do that this week. I'll study for my exam. And so I think I found that to be like a very effective strategy. But in the end, college is rough. I heard someone say once that college is just saying, oh man, this week's going to be brutal every single week of college. And so that's probably like the most fair description I've ever heard of college. You just hope the next week is super easy, but it ends up being brutal. But at least breaks, you don't have any work during breaks. So those are very nice, much better than high school.
But you enjoy it though. I promise it's fun. Like right, you say it's brutal, but at the same time you bond with other people because of how brutal you all think it is. And then like you'll look back like 3 months later and you're like, dude, that was so easy. What was I? I only had like 45 hours of homework. Oh, are you kidding me? That's easy. So I'm exaggerating, obviously, but you will look back every semester and go, wow, I missed last semester. That was so easy. It's kind of like a never-ending cycle. It's always a good time, I promise.
Robert, I also real quick want to commend you for doing all the homework the second it comes out. That's impressive.
Yes.
That's abnormal. Nobody does that.
I aspire to be a front loader. Oh my gosh. No, it gets to, so my homework days are Saturday and Sunday. And I'm like, I should probably start those on Monday. It's Monday. Well, we can just wait a little. No, but it's fine. So for me, the way that I organize, I use a planner. That's kind of like super old fashioned. I don't know who else uses a planner, but it's just full of black ink, all my meetings, all my appointments, all my homework that I need to do, these little random meetings I have with people at random times, like different opportunities. So yeah, I'm a huge planner person. I'm also big on when I get the reminder emails. I'm like, that was so helpful. Like, thank God. So I don't miss anything, you know? So yeah, I'm big on planning. I'm big on like trying to like think back to like when somebody asks me like, can you do this? I have to go back to like my planner, look at my calendar, you know, is this actually something that I can do? If not, maybe another time works. Cause I like to, I like to say yes, but we really have to look back and like our planner, like how full is our planner really? We don't want to overflow ourselves too much.
Yeah, that's really great. That's really great. That's a really great advice for and finding your own niche. It's really important to find your own niche of what works for you, and then continue doing that to have success. So with that, that is the end of our first podcast. Thank you guys all so much for being here. This has been an awesome time. And if there's any last words that you'd like to share or anything, please feel free. But other than that, this has been a great time.
Thank you guys.
Thank
It
you.
was such a great
Yeah, thank you,
opportunity
everyone.
to
This is a lot
talk
of fun.